As always, K-Mac time, and Star Wars Force Awakens brought us many new characters and faces. One of the most intriguing new faces, however, was Maz Kanata, a mysterious, short, force-sensitive female smuggler who owned a large castle on the planet Takodana. Not much is known about this character except that she is over 1,000 years old. She is force-sensitive somehow. She's also managed to retrieve Luke Skywalker's lightsaber after it was lost on Cloud City. After that, we don't know a whole lot. One of the few things we do know about her is that she is very intrigued by eyes. She has seen many eyes and can tell what someone is feeling simply by looking into them. She demonstrated this in The Force Awakens by looking into the eyes of Finn and identifying his urge to run. We also know that Maz has witnessed the dark side throughout the ages, including through the Sith and the Empire. Now, not just everyone knew about the Sith. Now, the Sith was a much more secretive group. Clearly, Maz was not cooped up in her castle all of those years if she somehow managed to witness the rise of the Sith. So where was she, you ask? Well, what if I told you Maz was actually right in front of our eyes in most of the Star Wars movies? Now, Maz's short stature, the fact that she witnessed major plot points in the history of the galaxy, her knowledge of Luke and Anakin, and her interest in eyes can all connect her to previous roles in the previous films, but not as a major role as you would expect. Maz managed to lay under the radar during the previous Star Wars films as someone who not only witnessed a lot, but actually had a great impact as well, without really being noticed by anyone. Now, according to this theory, during the Star Wars Phantom Menace, Attack on Clones, A New Hope, and Return of the Jedi, Maz was actually a Jawa. First, let's break it down, starting with the more obvious points. Let's look at the height comparison. According to Wikipedia.com, Maz Kanata is around 1.24 meters tall, whereas the average height of a Jawa is somewhere around the 1 to 1.3 meters tall. Though they aren't exactly the same number, 1 meter average for the Jawas is simply an average. There's no reason that Maz could not have been one of the taller Jawas of the group, as her heights did differentiate in the movies. We also don't know exactly what a Jawa looks like under its brown hood and robes. For all we know, they could have looked like Maz, or they could have looked like something different. We don't really know. All we see of their facial features is their glowing yellow eyes. In fact, the costume for these characters under the hood is just a black face cover with 2 yellow lights in front of them. There's no way to disprove that Maz could have been under one of these dark hoods. But what about her eyes, you say? Well, one of the biggest things Maz would put emphasis on when we saw her in The Force Awakens was a person's eyes. She had an obvious obsession with them. She was always wearing goggles, seemingly just for this purpose. Perhaps this trait was gained from when she lived with the Jawas, as this was a form of nonverbal communication that they practiced. With the exception of hand gestures, it may have been the only way they communicated. Eye communication was likely a strong form of communication for the Jawas that could easily explain Maz's emphasis on it in The Force Awakens. But in The Force Awakens, Maz's eyes were hazel. This is unlike the Jawas, as they're seemingly glow yellow. This, however, is explainable in 2 possible scenarios. The first option is Maz's goggles are similar to contact lenses that change her eye color, thus diminishing the bright yellow from her eyes to give out more a hazel appearance. Second option is that the Jawas wore goggles that gave out a glowing yellow tint. To me personally, the second option makes more sense and explains how the eyes of the Jawa unnaturally managed to glow that bright of yellow. Perhaps after retiring as a Jawa, Maz put on a new pair of goggles as she was unacquainted with the feelings of not wearing any. Now, Maz actually witnessed a whole lot as a Jawa. If this theory stands, it could actually show a lot of this character's secret history and explain how she knew and saw so much. She somehow knew a lot of the history between the Sith and the Jedi, and even knew more about the Skywalker bloodline. Let's look at Maz's appearances on screen chronologically, going from episode 1 to episode 6. Maz's first appearance was in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. It was brief, but it actually ties itself back to when we see her in The Force Awakens. During the pod race, we see briefly 2 Jawas watching. As someone who was connected to the Force and therefore connected to Anakin, it would make a lot of sense that Maz was in fact one of those 2 Jawas watching the race occur. This is later supported in The Force Awakens, as many of the banners hung from Maz's castle are flags from that specific pod race, including Anakin's banner and the banner of the race itself. Maz must have understood this race's importance in the history of the galaxy and kept the flags for safekeeping, later hanging them at her castle like an overcrowded museum exhibit. Also remember that Darth Maul arrived on Tatooine during the Phantom Menace. Perhaps Maz witnessed the Sith apprentice, thus explaining her knowledge of the dark side. Her next appearance was in Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, and this is actually one of the few times we witness an interaction with one of the main characters and the Jawas. As Anakin is riding his speeder to rescue his mother from the Tusken Raiders, he stops to ask a Jawa for directions. Perhaps this too was Maz Kanata. Maz's connection with the Force most likely informed her that the being there would fulfill a large part of Anakin's destiny. Though she likely did not know the end result of that destiny, she most likely wanted to seek out Anakin and help him in any way she could. She understood that he was the chosen one, and knowing that he was born into the Force. If you had the chance to help out the chosen one, she would definitely have done it in that part of her life. Maz's next appearance was in A New Hope. The classic Star Wars film included what is perhaps Maz's largest interaction with another character before finally appearing in The Force Awakens. During A New Hope, we witnessed the Jawas picking up R2-D2 and selling him to Uncle Owen. However, this situation is actually a lot deeper than you may think. As Maz was able to see many occurrences throughout the galaxy with the Force, obviously using herself as a means to stop the dark side at all costs, she likely understood the need to keep the plans hidden inside of R2-D2 out of the hands of the Empire. This would explain why she and the other Jawas kidnapped R2-D2 and C-3PO. Maz then took the droid to someone she trusted, Luke Skywalker. She knew that this would start him on his path to become a Jedi. The only catch here would be the fact that all the Jawas were killed by the stormtroopers. But what if only most of them were killed? Take a look at the picture here. On the left, you see what we assume to be the entire group of Jawas. If you count them, there are 8 in total. The picture on the right is of the Jawas that were slaughtered by the stormtroopers. How many are there? That's right, 7. So 1 escaped. Which one exactly? Maz freaking Kanata. She managed to escape just in time after betraying the Empire. Now, during Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, we see a lone Jawa in Jabba's palace, which could well be Maz. Behind Jabba, there is a single Jawa. From what we know of Jawas, they typically stay in groups, so seeing one single Jawa on its own is actually quite intriguing. Perhaps it is because the rest of her Jawa friends were killed by stormtroopers years earlier. If this were Maz, it would explain why she later opened her own castle. At Jabba's palace, she witnessed the party life with some of the lowest life in the galaxy and the worst people, and somehow enjoyed it. After the death of Jabba, she likely tore off her robes and hood and started her own castle on planet Takandana. Although Maz did appear in Jabba's palace, there was no sign of her on the sail barge during the fight over the Sarlacc. This would explain how she managed to survive. Perhaps she volunteered to stay behind, knowing that Jabba and his goons would stand no chance against the Jedi Luke Skywalker. So where does the lightsaber come in? Somehow Maz Kanata managed to retrieve the Skywalker lightsaber that was lost over Cloud City during The Empire Strikes Back, but the answer as to how was never revealed. Perhaps Maz picked it up to add to her collection at her castle after the death of Jabba. Her castle wall does show how many memories she has from her past, including flags from the pod race and a Mandalorian symbol, which was most recognizable from Boba Fett, who resided at Jabba's palace. After having a history of watching the Skywalker bloodline, perhaps Maz sought after the saber for her collection to remember their legacy. This would make sense as there was a 30-year period of time between the death of Jabba and when we see Maz in The Force Awakens. There was plenty of time for her to track down the lightsaber and add it to her collection. Plus, there's also a possibility the Force told her to do it, since she is Force sensitive and she had actually seen the lightsaber in person before. Though this is definitely not a fact that Maz is a Jawa, it certainly is a strong possibility. It would not only explain a lot about how Maz herself, it would explain how R2-D2 stumbled across Luke Skywalker in the deserts of Tatooine all of those years ago. Until there is something strong to disprove it, Maz Kanata is a Jawa in my book. She has the stature, she has the characteristic, and it really just fits perfectly for this whole thing like a puzzle piece. So that's the whole theory, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Special shout out to the original author of this theory, Trevor Norkey, over on Movie Pilot. Great site. Check him out. But like I said, guys, make sure you smash that like button. And if you guys are new around here, make sure you guys subscribe to get more of these fan theories, Star Wars theories in your sub box daily. As always, guys, remember that's KMAC time somewhere. Take it easy and peace out. Oh, and before I forget, today's code word, which you guys can drop in the comment section and let me know you guys made it all the way through the end of this video, is going to be Pod Racer. So go ahead and drop that in the comments below. Peace out, guys. Also, make sure you guys check out my other Star Wars theory where we talk about the possibility of Jar Jar Binks actually being killed in The Force Awakens, and we take a look at Supreme Leader Snoke's actual identity. Make sure you guys click those links and check those out.